This is Joe Rosemaric, and today we're going to perform service on a baitcaster. Going to need a few things: some precision screwdrivers, some grease, and some oil. The exact process for your reel might vary slightly, but the general procedures are going to be the same. More or less, the location of the screws and how your reel comes apart. This here happens to be a quantum pulse reel. When you go and start taking apart your reel, go and look and see where these general principles lie. The first thing you're going to want to do is take off the side cover. There's usually some little button or switch, like this one right here, that allows you to take off this entire side wing here. The other thing this lets you do is take off the entire spool. Okay, now this here has been recently oiled. You can still see the red oil right here and right here. We're completely taking this guy apart due to an upcoming out-of-state trip. The next thing you're going to have to do is take apart the opposite side, the one with your crank and the one with your drag here. Now usually there's multiple screws here that hold these two pieces together. A lot of times they'll be under a cover, under a plate, so if you loosen the screws you see and you're not completely disassembled, stop and take a look and look for hidden screws. So like right here, we have the two obvious ones, but this guy right here, if you look, passes all the way through the body of the reel and holds things together as well. What you'll want to do is take your precision screwdriver and loosen each of these connections. So we got 1, 2, and we're falling apart already. 3 and 4. Now in theory, if you've disassembled the right parts, this should want to come apart. This does not. We forgot about these two screws on the outside. We're still being held together. Oh, we got one right here as well. There we go. And now we can see this whole guy coming apart. Like so. So we got to get our screws all the way out. Like so. Oh, we got something that's still sticking here. We gotta look and see where that hidden screw is. So we had to take our reel cover off. There's a single screw there, and a bolt that is reverse threaded. Take our reel off. Should be able to take our drag off. We still got something attached here. So we have this most of the way apart, and then we have to unscrew our drag, which is the last piece holding us in. And when we do, we're going to expose all the gears for this. And keep going, I guess. Okay. Now be careful when you do this, because there's going to be a lot of gears and they have to mesh. And this guy still has some oil on it. This guy could probably use a little oil. But when you look, you want to make sure that everything is free to move and has grease or oil on it. Now the gears that are going to be covered, you typically want to put on grease. Things that are going to be more exposed, like your reel seat and your spool, you're going to want oil because you can add oil much simpler without this disassembly. So if you've got the tip on our white lithium grease, what you want to do is make sure each of the gears has grease on them when you're done. Like so. And you don't have to spray the entire gear. Spray part of the gear and then run everything to get grease everywhere. Now see, like, well, this gear isn't currently meshing with anything because we had a piece fall out. We'll have to go and spray the entire gear and get it spread during reassembly. So you have all the internal parts reassembled here, and you can see where these two gears mesh together. Make sure that there's grease all the way around. If you're not sure if there's grease, you can go and put some on your finger and just kind of generally rub it around. But me personally, I just go and I take 2, 3, 4 rotations of the gears where they mesh and make sure that everything's got nice grease all the way around. Once you have the grease in place, this is going to be pretty hardy, it's going to be well protected, and it's something you should only have to do once or twice a year. Places where there's oil, anytime you go on a big trip, if you go and drop your reel in the water, or anytime you see a dip in performance in your materials, that's when you stop and add oil. Once you have all these gears in and meshed, you're basically just going to reassemble everything in the reverse order that you took it apart. So you put the housing back together, put your drag back on. So once you have your housing reassembled, put it in a couple screws, not necessarily tight, just to hold everything in place. Put your start drag back on, which is going to be reverse threaded, and you're going to have to hold your worm gear while you're doing that. Then you'll have your washer, oh, got this backwards. Come on. Have a washer, a handle, another washer, and your nut, which is also going to be reverse threaded, so it's actually going to be lefty-righty. We can get this guy going on here. Then what we'll do is we'll put this nut back onto the handle. We're going to want to grease the connection where the spool fits in. You can see it in silver right there. Now this guy was recently serviced on a light basis, so that is already lubricated. You want to run the line through the center of the reel so that when you put the spool in, you can feed it out like so. So then, in terms of the oil, you're going to want to hit a couple of points. You're going to want to hit both ends of the spool, one where it connects into the main part of the reel here. Now we're not going to hit it this time just because it's already been recently oiled. And we're going to want to hit this point, which is actually easier to get inside the casing here. You can still see that little drip of red oil. And the last one is in the worm gear. So you can see this here, as it would spin with the handle, this worm gear right here is going to be a place you're going to want to oil. And there's no such thing as oiling this too much. it will constantly be exposed to weather, water, dust, grit, etc. You see that red oil down in there. So when we go, come on now. Oh boy. Well, anyways, as we sit here and turn this, you can see how that worm gear is getting oil all the way across it. Once you have that worm gear oiled, both ends of your spool, and you've greased your gears, you're done. It's just a matter of reassembly. We'll put the spool back in, we'll put the cover back on, and away we go.